Order! Order. Before we start today's business, I want to note that today is Holocaust Memorial Day. I know that the whole House will agree with me about the importance of remembering the 6 million Jewish people murdered during the Holocaust, alongside the millions of other people killed as a result of Nazi persecution, as well as those killed in more recent genocides, Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. Members will have an opportunity to make further contributions during the debate on Thursday. For now, I know that colleagues will want to join me in thanking the Holocaust Memorial Trust for the important work it does. Yeah. We now come to questions of the Chancellor of Exchequer. Chris Godwin.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Innovation is a key driver of long-term economic growth, higher productivity and indeed improved living standards. That's why this government is investing more in R&D and why we're committed to maintaining the generosity of R&D tax reliefs. We do remain open to new and innovative debt instruments and review options regularly, but clearly new instruments need to meet a range of criteria, including value for money.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the 1940s, refugees fled the Nazis and built the atomic bomb. They pioneered a method of public research and development which has powered US economic dominance ever since. The EU Safe Defence Bond Fund offers us a similar transformative opportunity. 20 billion invested in defence R&D could expand our economy by 100 billion. Will we join our Canadian and European allies, end our economic stagnation and together defend the free...
I could see that you want to round up, but this is more a statement than a question. You're telling the history, quite important, but I'm sure there must be a question coming now. I've got a lot of other people to get in. Chris.
Will we invest in the EU Safe Defence Bond Fund?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for his question. Indeed, it's an issue that he and I have discussed previously, and we are due to meet to discuss it later this month, and I'm very much looking forward to that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merseycare NHS Trust has plans for a mental health research and development facility at McGill Health Park in my constituency. It would be world leading. Would the Minister meet with me to discuss how the Treasury might support investing in such an important research and development project, not least as it is fundamental to the Government's plans for improving healthcare?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend raises an important point, and of course this government is investing an extra £29 billion in our National Health Service. I would of course be happy to meet with him to discuss it further.
Justin Sullivan.
Mr. Speaker, question number 2.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very sorry to see your leg in such a way. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to answer the question together, this question together with questions 6 and 13. We are committed to driving growth everywhere. The budget ensured that Scottish public services are fairly funded, with an extra £820 million for the Scottish Government through the Barnett formula, on top of a record settlement in June this year. We're also investing in transport for city regions and £5 billion in deprived neighbourhoods through the Pride in Place programme, with some of that money going to Scotland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the fantastic news that Edinburgh and South East Scotland will receive £37.8 million from the new Local Growth Fund supporting infrastructure, business support and skills development. However, I hear consistently from businesses that they struggle to recruit people with the skill sets needed to grow their operations and fuel economic growth. So can the Chancellor set out how this investment will reach beyond the cities to tackle the acute skills shortages in my constituency of Bathgate and Linlithgow?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I thank my honourable friend for that question and her commitment to her constituency. It's right that the money is allocated through the regional economic partnerships in Scotland, and I have absolutely no doubt that my honourable friend will make the case for her local area. These regional economic partnerships have already worked together to deliver the integrated regional employability and skills programme in Edinburgh and South East Scotland, including helping people in her Bathgate and Linlithgow constituency.
Emma Foodie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Ministers will be all too aware of my campaign to unlock improvement at Moor Farm Roundabout, as it currently holds back growth across the North East and causes misery to local people on a daily basis. Now, the government has rightly taken steps to ensure that my region gets its fair share of investment for changes to the Green Book and place-based business cases. But will the Chancellor please meet with me ahead of the road investment strategy to ensure we finally get this long overdue investment in a critical piece of North East infrastructure?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. I know that she has been a tireless campaigner for the Moor Farm roundabout, which does hold back growth and prosperity, and it holds back both commuters but businesses too. I will continue to work with her, and I know that the roundabout is now being properly considered for inclusion in the road investment strategy, and I'm happy to meet with her to discuss that further.
Glenn Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Ayrshire Growth Deal was allocated £103 million of UK government funds. This has potential to make a real difference to our economic prospects. Despite clear potential, the delivery on the ground remains far too slow in turning round real progress. What action can the UK government take to drive momentum, sharpen the strategic direction of the deal and ensure Ayrshire finally sees the benefits of this investment?
Hear, hear.
I thank my honourable friend for her question. This Labour government is investing over £250 million in economic development and regeneration in Ayrshire, including through their Ayrshire Growth deal, but not just through that deal. My colleague is a great champion of Ayrshire, and I look forward to working with my honourable friend and also with my good friend Anna Sawa in the months and years ahead to deliver for the people of Ayrshire and right across Scotland.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. There's a report this morning from the Jobs Foundation which says that the energy sector in the north east of Scotland is on a cliff edge. Robert Gordon's have estimated that 400 jobs will be lost every week. Given the importance of that sector, not just to Aberdeen or to Edinburgh West, but to the Scottish and the UK economy, will the Chancellor think about providing the regional development support that the Scottish Government is failing to do?
I thank the Honourable Lady for that question, and at the budget we published the North Sea oil and gas plan and also announced the end of the energy profits levy at the end of this Parliament, giving certainty that the levy introduced by the previous government will come to an end. At the same time, we're supporting the transition to new jobs in new industries right across Scotland, including in Aberdeenshire, because the opportunities to transition to jobs in clean energy are very real, and we need to make sure that those jobs come to Scotland.
Gregory Campbell.
Mr Speaker, I know the Chancellor would say that the Northern Ireland budget was one that was an exceptionally good one, but would she agree with me that particularly in three instances, policing, education and health, there are extreme circumstances pertaining at the moment? Will she at least get into some discussions with the First and Deputy First Minister in Northern Ireland to see what can be done to alleviate the problems that are coming towards us?
My right honourable friends, the Northern Ireland Secretary and also the Chief Secretary to the Treasury are in discussions with the Northern Ireland Executive on some of those additional pressures that they are facing at the moment. We're working through those plans and we'll have more to say on that shortly.
Kelly Chant.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Regional funding must not come at the expense of local authority funding, and all devolved funding must recognise the realities in the places where funding is needed. And yet, under the so-called Fair Funding Review, Herefordshire Council is going to see a reduction to 78% of current levels of UK central government funding in just 3 years. And the government has removed the remoteness adjustment for anything except social care. But of course, rurality matters for bin collections and school transport, all other aspects. So will the Chancellor look again at the fair funding review, which is unfair for so many places like Herefordshire. Review that and ensure that remoteness is properly adjusted for in the calculation.
My understanding is that MHCLG are still consulting on this, so the Honourable Lady and other colleagues will have a chance to feed into that consultation. But in the spending review, we put an extra £600 million into supporting local authorities after the years of austerity under the Conservative government. And whilst the previous Conservative Prime Minister said that he would take money away from poorer areas and give it to Tunbridge Wells, we are indeed investing more fairly in other areas that need it most.
Richard Ford. Question number 3, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I should like to answer this question together with number 4, 9, 10, 14 and 16. There have been a number of questions on this topic, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure there'll be more later today, as I will be making a statement to the House this afternoon on a package of support in relation to business rates with a particular focus on pubs. As previously announced, Mr. Speaker, we're introducing a support package worth £4.3 billion to support ratepayers seeing increases in their business rates bills.
Ford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joanna Watson runs hotels in Sidmouth, the Elizabeth Hotel and the Kingswood Hotel, and she is essentially facing a 20% rise in her business rate costs. Joanna's bills don't reflect what she actually earns. They stay high all year round, even though there are months like these in winter when income completely collapses. The government legislated for a 20p reduction in the business rates multiplier for hospitality, and that created an expectation that it would be used. And I hear the Minister saying he will make a statement this afternoon. Will he also consider the plight of hotels, such as those in Sidmouth? Yeah.
We have considered the challenges that hospitality businesses and businesses on our high streets have faced, Mr. Speaker. That's why we put in place the £4.3 billion of support at the budget. But we do recognise that there are concerns as to how hotels are valued for business rates, and that will be one of the items that I'll be talking about in the statement later today.
Paula Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a very speedy recovery for you and your leg. I recently visited the wonderful Aura salon in my constituency and spoke to the owners, Victoria and Janice, who have owned the business for 24 years and are the hub of their local community. They've invested and trained numerous young hairstylists and now find that their business rates and VAT is crippling them, meaning they can no longer take on apprenticeships. Victoria and Janet told me that the VAT rate they pay is unbalanced compared to other sectors that claim back VAT. Can the Chancellor please advise what can be done to help salons like Aura and others who are part of our Save Our Salons campaign? And is there any plans for an affordable apprentice scheme in the hairdressing sector?
I thank my honourable friend for the work that she is doing to champion salons and the beauty industry in her constituency and elsewhere. She raises the issue of VAT, and she will know that VAT is a broad-based tax, and in fact it's our third largest revenue raiser, raising £180 billion last year, and that's vital revenue that pays for our public services. There are, of course, lots of issues in relation to VAT and the differential treatment depending on how salons decide to set themselves up and pay their employees. These are important issues. And, of course, in the usual way, we will consider tax changes in the run-up to future budgets.
Sir John Whittingham.
Number 9. We're linked. Can I ask the Minister, I recently visited the Ship Inn in Burnham-on-Crouch, which has a few hotel rooms, as well as Peabury's, a tea shop in the High Street. Both are looking at existential threats as a result of business rates. So can he say whether the package he is going to be announcing later is going to benefit them as well?
To the honourable member, I would say that I don't think Mr. Speaker would like me to preempt the package and the announcements that will be made later today, what is or isn't in it. But the honourable member has given me the opportunity to reiterate the fact that at the budget, for the first time, we have implemented differential rates of tax, differential multipliers, meaning that the smallest high street businesses now pay meaning that the largest businesses now pay 33% more than the smallest high street businesses in terms of their tax rate. That is a big differential that wasn't there before and that now is because of the big reforms that we made at the budget.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my Oxfordshire constituency of Didcot and Wantage, pubs including the Fox Inn in Denchworth, the White Hart in Harwell and the Fox and Hounds in Uffington are vital to their village communities, yet they face significant business rate increases from April. Now, given that the Chief Executive of the Valuation Office Agency told the Treasury Select Committee that ahead of the budget, the VOA warned that over 5,000 pubs will see their business rates double, can the Minister tell the House why they decided to press on and create such uncertainty for our hospitality sector in the budget?
Mr Speaker, the government will have more to say a bit later today when it comes to pubs and the support that this government can provide for them. I would say, though, that because we knew that the revaluations were being implemented from the 1st of April, that's precisely why we came forward with a significant package of support for all businesses across the economy, and we introduced some significant reforms to lower the multipliers for businesses like the pubs that he mentions in his constituency.
Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In Sheffield Central, businesses continue to face disproportionately higher pressures, with ever-increasing running costs that are stacking up and a drop in footfall. Businesses like the Gamers Guide Cafe and the Durham Rainbow Pub tell me that they need much more to be able to survive the dip in foot traffic. So can the Minister set out how he is reducing pressures on high street cafes and pubs, and will he consider targeted relief to ensure viability for the hospitality businesses?
I thank my honourable friend for her question and for the representation she provides for her businesses and constituents in Sheffield. One of the important things to note about the business rate system is that there are many, many businesses on our high streets, many smaller businesses, who pay no business rates at all. 1 in 3 businesses continue to benefit from small business rates relief, and an additional 85,000 benefit from reduced bills as this tapers. And one thing that we announced at the budget I think will be really helpful for small and independent businesses is that we've announced an additional 2 years of small business rates relief for those that are expanding into a second property to support them to be able to grow and to expand.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Chelmsford has a vibrant nighttime economy. Just last Sunday, I spent the evening at a fabulous local music venue called Hotbox, right in the heart of my constituency. Venues such as Hotbox represent important cultural and social spaces for smaller cities like mine, but many are now at risk due to government recent changes to the business rate system. New analysis puts the average increase in the hospitality business rates bill in Chelmsford at nearly £23,000 over 3 years. For many, that's impossible to absorb. Another family-run business in Chelmsford that's been going for 25 years will see their monthly rates more than double from April. They've said they will simply have to close their doors if this goes ahead, resulting in 40 people losing their jobs. So will the government implement the 20p discount it has already legislated for and let all businesses in retail, leisure and hospitality get the support they need?
I have got the idea, Mr Speaker, and the key thing to note here, Mr Speaker, is that there is a significant difference between the change in the rateable value and the change in the business rates. This year, we have stepped in to cap the increases for bills at £800 for those coming into the system for the first time, or for most high street businesses, the increase will be 15%. The very largest will see increases of 30%. Mr Speaker, that's the steps we have taken. When the Liberal Democrats were in government, they chose to increase VAT on businesses up and down the country.
That's from West.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and could I wish you a speedy recovery. Could the Minister say something about music recording studios, the church recording studio where Annie Lennox recorded Sweet Dreams Are Made of This? Could he give me a sweet dream this evening and tell me that my music recording studio is going to be fine?
Mr Speaker, I am very fond of my constituency neighbour in Barnet, who has the privilege of sharing a part of Barnet with me in terms of her parliamentary representation. There will be news this afternoon, Mr. I'm just trying to find my words, Mr Speaker. I hope that the microphone picked that up. We will be making further announcements this afternoon, Mr Speaker, specifically focused on pubs, but I do understand that there are businesses all across the economy who will have seen increases in their rateable values since the pandemic, and that's precisely why we've stepped in with the support package that we have.
Well, Reeves.
Here's another one. What assessment has the Minister made on the impact of of high street, the really small independent bookshops. This is the year of reading. We want them to stay open, not close.
I thank my honourable friend for her question. The really small bookshops up and down the country, many of them will not be paying any business rates at all because they will be in receipt of small business rates relief. Of course, there will be some in some parts of the country that will have seen either their rateable values increase or because of the government's decision to slowly wind down the temporary pandemic support that will see an increase in their bills. But we're capping those increases this year and in subsequent years in order that that transition can be manageable for those businesses, because of course we want to support bookshops on our high streets. They are incredibly important, along with all the other high street retailers, Mr Speaker, up and down the country.
James Wilde, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The Chancellor promised hospitality firms she would lower their taxes, but her business rate raid is hammering every town, village, city and high street. And this is not just an attack on pubs, it's hotels, cafes, music venues and many more that are being hit. It's 2 months since the budget caused huge worry for these businesses, and we await details of this latest U-turn. But the key question is, does the Chancellor get it? Does she get that it's not just pubs, it's hospitality, leisure and retail businesses that need support because of her terrible choices?
Mr Speaker, members opposite do not get it, because when they were in government, they set out plans, Mr Speaker, to remove the temporary pandemic rates relief overnight in 2025. That would have been an increase in business rate bills overnight for businesses on the high street of 300%. We have taken a different and fairer and more proportional approach, phasing out the pandemic relief over a slower time period and extending it into this year too.
Daisy Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and wishing you a speedy recovery. We know that pubs have been badly hit by these business rates changes, but it's businesses right across retail, hospitality and leisure that have made investment decisions and hiring decisions based on the expectation raised by this government that they would get a full 20p discount on their business rate multiplier. Mr Speaker, it is these businesses, music venues, restaurants, soft play centres, hotels that are the high street shops that communities most love. Do ministers accept that anything less than the full 20p discount for retail, hospitality and leisure will leave the 3 to 5 year business plans of these high street businesses in total disarray?
Mr Speaker, we announced a 5p reduction in the multiplier on top of the 7p or thereabouts reduction that was taking place as a result of the revaluation more broadly. And, Mr Speaker, that's a £900 million transfer of underlying rates liability away from the smallest high street businesses towards the online giants and the largest properties. When the Liberal Democrats had the chance, when the Conservatives had the chance, they kept the tax rates the same. We have introduced significant reform. We started the work of that reform at the budget, and of course we will continue conversations in the months ahead.
Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm afraid that businesses up and down the country know that the government raised their expectations and then dashed them. But this whole sorry saga has been an absolute shambles, and the question remains, why was it that ministers were so blindsided when the VOA has confirmed that they were providing data drops over a period of 12 months? Will ministers use the opportunity in 90 minutes or so to answer all of the questions that opposition MPs have asked to explain what they knew and when?
Yes, happily.
Joe White.
Question number 5, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, the government provides a wide range of loan support for SMEs through the British Business Bank. This includes the Start-up Loans Programme and the Growth Guarantee Scheme, the latter of which recently supported over 4,000 businesses and over 65,000 jobs right across the country.
Joe White.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently met Matthew Pendleton, who owns Appetizer Dog Treats, a high-quality dog treat company, a company that grew legs because processed dog food made his pet dog violently ill. Matthew now needs the finances so that he can continue to expand, employ more staff and get Appetizer on the national pet food map. I want to see businesses like this succeed in my area, and Matthew's small ask is, will the government step in with the offer of an underwritten loan?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for her question. She is, of course, a tireless champion of businesses in Bassett law, and I wish her a happy birthday for yesterday as well, Mr. Speaker. The recent spending review, the government extended the growth guarantee scheme, enabling £5 billion worth of loans over the next 4 years. This will support businesses like those my honourable friend mentions, and I'd be more than happy to meet with her to talk about how her constituent might further access this support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, of-a-kind technologies like drift energy in Bath face serious investment challenges and difficulties accessing grant funding under any government department. Drift are groundbreaking renewable energy innovators that could rapidly scale and contribute to the UK's energy independence. What is the government doing to ensure that especially first-in-kind technologies receive the support they need here in the UK rather than being forced to go abroad?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for her question. As she may well know, at the spending review we increased the financial capacity of the British Business Bank to £25.6 billion, and there are a number of ways in which the British Business Bank will support those like the company that she refers to.
Dave McKelly, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As well as the British Business Bank, the National Wealth Fund is a crucial part of where taxpayers' money is important for investment. And I welcome the Government's response to the Select Committee's report on this issue. But could the Minister give some indication about when the National Wealth Fund will have the ability to borrow from private markets in order to increase its independence, funding for infrastructure and get the taxpayer off the hook?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the right honourable member for her question. It's absolutely right that we have increased the amount of funding going into the National Wealth Fund. My understanding is we haven't set a date as to the specific question that she refers to, but I'm more than happy to write to her with further information to the extent it exists.
Tim Farron.
Mr. Speaker, has the Minister done an assessment of what proportion of funds given out through grant funding through the British Business Bank are going to the smallest of businesses? 1 in 4 people in the workforce in my constituency work for themselves. And I wonder to what extent she is working to ensure that smaller businesses, those employing 10 people and fewer, which is the very bedrock of our economy in the Lakes and the Dales in Cumbria, even know about the availability of these loans and can be talked through the difficult process of applying and receiving it so we can invest in rural communities like ours, where, as I say, so many of those people in the workforce are working either for themselves or for a very small business indeed.
Mr. Speaker, the government's policies vis-à-vis businesses as a whole support businesses like the ones that the honourable member refers to in a whole range of ways. But as to specifically businesses in his area, I can tell him that the growth guarantee scheme, in relation to the businesses that it supported recently, 80% of that deployment was outside London.
Lord Murphy.
Question number 7, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising living standards are the ultimate goal of economic policy, and living standards are rising after the unprecedented fall seen during the last Parliament. Specifically on my honourable friend's question, the latest data shows that the average person's real disposable income is £800 higher than in the final year of the last Parliament.
Murphy.
I thank the Minister for his answer. As he says, the last Parliament was the worst on record for living standards. So my constituents, many of whom the cost of living is the #1 issue, welcome the action to freeze rail fares delivering £350 on average, £150 off energy bills, and the groundbreaking commitment today to cap ground rent, which I know we will be hearing about later today. But will the Minister confirm that this government will continue to strain every sinew, clear every obstacle and use the power of government to cut the cost of living and raise living standards for my constituents over the course of this Parliament?
Well, my honourable friend is a powerful campaigner on this issue, consistently week after week, raising the issue of living standards for people in Basingstoke. And he's also particularly right to highlight the key role of energy bills in this. The budget took levies off energy bills to save families £150 on average next year, and this is part of wider measures that will directly cut inflation by 0.4 percentage points, further supporting living standards by making it easier for banks to cut mortgage rates and giving businesses the confidence to invest. Energy bills cut Ground rents capped. Change promised and change delivered.
Oh, Jim Chan.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for that answer. Can I ask the Minister what assessment that the Minister and Government has made of the recent trends in household living standards across the United Kingdom, but in discussion with the Minister relevant in Northern Ireland, and what steps his department can take in conjunction with those regional administrations to ensure that the Executive in Northern Ireland can support households facing rising costs? I know the Minister has got lots of answers. Give us an answer on this one, please.
We always give the honourable member an answer, and I mean always. In every single one of these sessions. Government ministers spend a lot of time, particularly the Northern Ireland office, speaking to ministers in Northern Ireland, because he's absolutely right to say that the cost of living crisis is not one that has affected just one part of the United Kingdom, it's all parts of the United Kingdom. And just as one example, the 6 interest rate cuts we've seen since the general election have already made a big difference to those coming up to renew their mortgages in Northern Ireland.
Richard for the Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Persistently high inflation and fears that things will get tougher for their children are top issues for the British public. But the OBR's assessment of Labour's plans was, quote, growth in real household disposable income is projected to fall to around 0.25% per annum, well below the last decade's average. Minister, why is the sum of all this government's economic policies condemning the British public to such a despairing prospect?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is what is called leading with your chin. The MPs opposite were in power in the last Parliament, which saw living standards fall by 2.9%. They have already risen under this government by 1.5% because we are turning around their mess day after day after day.
Deb Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 8, please.
Minister.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I would like to answer this question with question number 22. Mr. Speaker, investment in our railways is a crucial part of our plan to unlock economic growth in every nation and region of the UK. Just earlier this month, my right honourable friend the Chancellor announced our plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail. This transformational programme is backed by up to £45 billion of investment in the long term, which will be key for unlocking economic potential across the north.
Deb Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People across Lichfield, Burntwood and the villages are delighted that this government has funded the Midlands Rail Hub project, meaning a doubling of the number of trains from Lichfield to Birmingham every hour. Ministers could go even further, though, by investigating the reopening of the Derby, Burton, Lichfield line, including a stop at in Olry for the National Memorial Arboretum. Despite warm words from my predecessor, no business case exists for this. So can the Minister confirm that this Labour government is not done investing in transport in the Midlands, and will he look again at the Derby, Burton, Lichfield line?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for highlighting the value of the Midlands Rail Hub, which we invested in at the spending review. And of course, we are determined to invest more in transport in the Midlands. And indeed, at the spending review, the government committed to investing £4.4 billion there through Transport for City Regions. My honourable friend is a great advocate for services that will benefit his constituents. And I will ask the Rail Minister to respond about the specifics of the line that he raises.
Alice Mandel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the investment this government has made in rail, including East-West Rail, but there are still several projects that would hugely benefit passengers and the local economy in the East. Those include upgrading the Trouse Swing Bridge near Norwich and, of course, Ely and Hawley junctions. So would the Chief Secretary meet with me and other colleagues from the East of England to discuss how we can advance these key infrastructure projects for the East of England?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. And of course, East-West Rail is a transformational project, Mr. Speaker, that will unlock economic growth and housing. Just yesterday, I was very glad to host a representative from East-West Rail at an infrastructure roundtable at the Treasury with my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. My honourable friend is another powerful advocate for her local area, and I will happily discuss this with rail ministerial colleagues and get back to her.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I met with Lawrence Bowman, the Chief Executive of SWR, and I'm keen to make sure that all the government's changes take positive effect in Salisbury and South Wiltshire, so that track signal and stock can be improved. Will the Minister make sure that there is a suitable reference board along the commuting line up into Waterloo, so that when his business plan is delivered, there won't be any delays when he has to interact with local authorities, a concern that he raised with me last week?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for raising the concerns of the services affecting his constituents, and I can assure him I'll look into these and get back to him.
In room.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Tarka line in North Devon has seen a massive increase in footfall. However, the line is often closed because of the lack of infrastructure upkeep. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss various funding opportunities, because it's a rural line and it's very, very vital for those students to get into Exeter and for people in those job opportunities, which I know the government are all about job growth.
Very good. Employment
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is absolutely right. We are all about job growth, and I fear I'm going to be quite busy after this set of questions in taking up projects from different constituencies. But that's absolutely right, because all of us want to make sure that we've got better investment, particularly in transport infrastructure for our constituents. So I can assure the honourable gentleman I'll look into this and get back in touch with him.
Sir James.
Question number 11, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to answer this question together with question 22. Energy bills, Mr. Speaker, are too high, and Britain is too dependent on the rollercoaster of gas prices. That's why the autumn budget reduced the cost of levies on energy bills to save households £150 on average from April this year.
Sir James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased that the Government is sticking to its pledge on reducing energy bills, as he rightly points out, with an average of £150 coming off annual bills this April. Does the Minister agree this is a good start, but will he also continue to work across Department to ensure we make further progress on the cost of living in this Parliament?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. People do need to see inflation come down, and that is what the OBR and the Bank of England forecast to happen. On energy bills, as she said, our plans will save households on average £150 from April, something she has campaigned for from over the past 18 months. And I'm pleased to say that energy companies have confirmed that their savings will be passed on to those with fixed tariffs. In terms of going further, I should add that we've also extended the £150 warm homes discount to a further 2.7 million of the poorest households.
And the Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I very warmly welcome the Chancellor's announcement at the budget to scrap the eco scheme, bringing down energy bills by £150 on average and supporting the some 5,000 households living in fuel poverty in my constituency of Shipley. This disastrous Tory-designed scheme, Eco4, cost £1 billion per year, and yet 98% of the external wall cavity installations were faulty. So can the Minister set out what further action he and the Chancellor are taking to reduce energy bills and to ensure that energy companies put people over profit?
Well, my honourable friend is entirely right. The Conservatives didn't just leave Britain dependent on the rollercoaster of gas prices. They left families paying almost £2 billion actually on their bills for their failed energy efficiency eco scheme. The chair of the PAC described its failings as the worst he'd ever seen. This is a fuel poverty scheme that cost 97% of those in fuel poverty more than it saved them, and it damaged thousands of homes. So we are scrapping the eco scheme and we are cutting families' bills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A new report by the Prosperity Institute is highly critical of the government's net zero policies and its adverse impact on the broader economy. My constituents' fuel bills continue to soar because of the government's reluctance to use more traditional sources of fuel. Will the Minister commit to raising this with the Energy Secretary because such ideological-driven policies are having an adverse impact on my constituents' bills?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, energy bills are too high because the Tory party left us dependent on the rollercoaster of gas prices. Wholesale gas prices today remain more than double what they were at the start of 2020. If the party opposite think that is some kind of advert for staying on gas forever, they're living in cloud cuckoo land.
Well, go on there, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, we've already heard this morning that businesses are suffering hard from business rates going up and from national insurance contributions going up. But on top of that, according to the Office of National Statistics, the energy bills of non-energy intensive industries such as hospitality and retail have increased under this government by up to 10% in the last year. Now, on this side of the House, we're proposing our cheap power plan, and that would save energy bills on small businesses by up to £5,000 a year. What's the Minister doing to try to help small businesses with their energy bills?
What this government is doing is actually getting on with building the energy infrastructure this country needs. What this government is doing is not going back to the 11% inflation seen under the party opposite. And what this government is doing is supporting small businesses, because he's absolutely right. The honourable member is absolutely right on one thing, which is high energy bills are not in the interests of British industry, and that is why we are getting on with fixing the energy system we inherited.
Lynn Jones.
Question 12, please.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is absolutely determined to get back all of the money lost through COVID, fraud and corruption. That is why I appointed the COVID Corruption Commissioner when I became Chancellor, and I can report that we have already brought in £400 million that the previous government gave up on.
Lynn Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has recouped £400 million in COVID fraud and error, with HMRC recovering a massive £1.3 billion, as well as aggressively pursuing the firm linked to Baroness Moan PPE MedPro. Does my right honourable friend agree that this government's relentless recovery action demonstrate that it's only under Labour that this money is recovered from fraudsters to do what it should, and that's to fund our public services?
Sadly, I can't comment on any individual case, but I am absolutely determined to get that money back, because that money belongs in our schools and our hospitals and our public services, not in the pockets of Tory friends and donors.
Alison Taylor.
Question number 17, Mr. Speaker, please.
Oh, brilliant. Well done, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, it's definitely right to say that the FTSE 100 performed strongly in 2025, during which it rose faster than key benchmark US and European stock markets, and it hit 10,000 points as we entered the new year. The UK, Mr. Speaker, is one of the world's leading global financial hubs, and this government is committed to the sector's enduring leadership.
Alison Taylor.
Does the Minister agree with me that cutting paperwork and speeding access to capital will provide a valuable boost to companies looking to list their shares on the London Stock Exchange? Is she hearing that from companies she is meeting with? Because that's what I've been hearing while I've been out engaging with business in Scotland.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm I am indeed hearing that, and last week's introduction of the new prospectus rules will mean faster execution, reduced complexity and a simplified route to capital raising. And together with the 3-year UK listing relief announced at budget, these initiatives will make the UK the most attractive destination for companies to start, scale, list and stay.
I'll look back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just one pure technology company is now listed on the FTSE 100. And budget measures such as cutting VCC tax relief will discourage companies from listing on the UK exchanges. Why is the government driving away growth and investment?
Mr. Speaker, the entrepreneurship package within the budget was incredibly important, and the aim of that package, which includes the UK listing relief, the 3-year stamp duty holiday that I referred to, is designed to make the UK the best place to start, scale and list a company.
Mr. Margolin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, the Chancellor has been very proud that the UK FTSE 100 index has passed through the £10,000 barrier, citing that this is an endorsement of her policies. But does she not realise that this still leaves the FTSE 100 index on lower valuations than comparable markets, and that in any event, over 80% of the earnings of the FTSE 100 index are generated outside the UK? Is it not clear that the FTSE 100 performance is despite this government's policies, not because of them?
Mr. Speaker, I really could not disagree with the Shadow Minister more, I'm afraid. And he's constantly talking this country down. The package of reforms that this government is making to our capital markets are strengthening our capital markets, and they are beginning to bear fruit.
Good job.
Question number 18, Mr. Speaker.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the Bank of England has overall responsibility for returning inflation to target, this government are taking the action that we can. £150 of energy bills from April this year, freezing prescription charges for the 2nd year in a row, and freezing rail fares for the first time in 30 years. As a result, the OBR forecasts that inflation will be 0.4 percentage points lower in 2026-27 than it otherwise would have been.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the Chancellor, for that answer. On Friday, I visited Primark in Staines, in my Spelthorne constituency, where the team, led by Luke, are doing a fantastic job in creating a vibrant retail experience. However, the British Retail Consortium have said that the Chancellor's jobs tax is actually pushing up prices and raising the cost of living. That same British Retail Consortium is also saying that the Employment Rights Bill will also be inflationary. So when did the Chancellor stop listening to business?
Well, I was at Primark just ahead of the budget, where we announced that we were going to take action on low-value imports, something welcomed by Primark and also many other retailers who are undercut by foreign importers who are not paying customs duty on what they bring into the country. So far from working against business, we are working in conjunction with business to grow our economy. Our economy exceeded expectations for growth last year, and I'm confident we will do the same this year too.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives may want to talk down Britain, but Bournemouth is building again. A £350 million expansion at JP Morgan Chase following the Chancellor's visit, £100 million by AFC Bournemouth, a £50 million airport upgrade, £26 million on Bournemouth and Poole College, £500 million on Royal Bournemouth Hospital development, and new land at Wessex Fields to build key worker housing and medical research. Will the Chancellor continue to prioritise stability and bringing down costs and the free trade that we need in our world so that we can continue to protect and expand these investments into Bournemouth?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that question. You didn't mention the beautiful Bournemouth Pier that we visited together in August and enjoyed a very nice ice cream. But you mentioned JP Morgan, who have announced record investment into their Bournemouth campus, where they are employing a shed load of apprentices as well to help them to grow their business. And after the budget this year, JP Morgan have announced a new building in Canary Wharf. Well, maybe the opposition front bench don't like apprentices, but this government do, and that is why we are backing them.
Topical
1, Mr. Speaker.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government has a plan to grow the economy and reduce the cost of living. The plan is the right one for Britain. We are cutting the cost of living, cutting the national debt and creating the conditions for growth in all parts of our country. We've had 6 cuts in interest rates since the general election, reducing typical mortgage costs by £1,200 a year, secured record levels of inward investment and trade deals with countries around the world. The FTSE has hit record highs, and while other countries are increasing barriers to trade, I was in Davos talking to allies about how to reduce them. Our economic plan is the right one to build a stronger and more secure Britain, and I am focused on delivering it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst I'm looking forward to the Minister's statement a little later on, I'd like to push him, if I may. I recently visited one of my local pubs, the Masonic Arms on Lark Lane, which is a fantastic venue, and met Guy and Amelia. Currently, the overall sector picks up 2.8% of the overall UK business rates nationally, but only has 0.5% of the turnover of UK businesses. This is clearly not a fair tax for pubs and is a result of a uniquely skewed business rate system which actively penalises many pubs. What long-term steps can the Minister take to help pubs like the Masonic Arms and the wider hospitality sector?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and she will know that we have permanently reduced the multiplier for business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure. But my honourable friend, the Exchequer Secretary, will be setting out more detail of support for pubs later today. We are determined to support pubs that are often the lifeblood of so many communities, but also to support all of our retail, hospitality and leisure sector. We are putting more money in people's pockets by cutting energy bills, by cutting train fares and ensuring getting people back to work so they've got more money to spend on the things they love and not just the essentials.
Shadow Chancellor Smelstride.
Well, Mr. Speaker, could I begin by associating this side of the House with the Chancellor's comments about your leg? We wish it well, Mr. Chancellor. Mr. Speaker, we are waiting with interest to hear the details of the latest U-turn on business rates this afternoon. But if the briefing is to be believed, it will be far too little, too late. The Chancellor simply does not understand the desperate situation so many of our pubs are in. And what many pubs are asking is, why did the Chancellor choose to spend billions more on the benefits bill instead of providing proper, permanent business rate support?
Mr. Speaker, when the Right Honourable Gentleman was in government, 7,000 pubs closed under the previous government. We have permanently lowered the tax rate that retail, hospitality and leisure pay. And when I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, we faced a situation where all of the COVID support was going to disappear overnight. We've put £4.3 billion of taxpayers' money into supporting our retail and hospitality sector, including pubs. But we recognise the distinct problems that pubs face, which is why, unlike the previous Conservative government, we are setting out more support.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they just don't get it. And of course, it's not just pubs, Mr. Speaker, it's the whole of the high street that is seeing massive increases, some of well over 100%. Shops, restaurants, hotels. Where is the help for them?
Mr. Speaker, some of the numbers that are bandied around by the Right Honourable Gentleman don't reflect the reality, because they don't reflect this transitional support, the £4.3 billion of support that we've put in to taper those increases in business rates. But I don't think anyone in this House seriously believes that temporary support during the pandemic should continue infinitely. It would not be the right thing, and it would not be affordable for other taxpayers to do that. That's why we are tapering gradually the support with a £4.3 billion support package in the budget and some more targeted support for pubs later today. But I would just remind the Honourable Gentleman that he could have taken action when he was in government. Instead, there was a cliff edge with no support for pubs or indeed any other sector of the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 3-year local government's funding settlement is a welcome return to long-term planning. And we see that Newcastle City Council faces a 34% rise in adult social care costs, compared with only a 15% rise in core spending power, taking more and more money away from so many services that my constituents depend upon. Would the Chancellor work across government to consider changes to the adult social care funding formula and/or increase to the recovery grant so that Newcastle City Council can meet the costs of social care, adult social care?
Well, as my honourable friend set out, there are significant challenges in adult social care, and we've already made available an extra £4.6 billion, including funding to start to implement the Fair Pay Agreement. As my honourable friend will probably be aware, Baroness Louise Casey is leading an independent commission to build consensus on reform, and its first phase will report this year with a focus on how to make the most of existing resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the Chancellor was enjoying her trip to Davos last week, inflation went up, as did unemployment, reversing the progress of the previous Conservative government. Did the Chancellor or her cabinet colleagues pick up any ideas in Davos that would reverse these trends, support our businesses and high streets, and end the hiring recession her budget has caused?
I'm not sure whether the Honourable Gentleman thinks that the Chancellor of the Exchequer shouldn't be in Davos, but I think it is important that the Chancellor is there banging the drum for Britain, bringing investment to Britain. Whilst I was in Davos, we secured new investment for Britain, worked with our allies on securing new trade deals for Britain, because whilst the opposition like to talk our country down, we're getting on and delivering a lower cost of living and higher economic growth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A recent Sunday Times investigation found worrying evidence that multiple businesses run by the reform leader of Durham County Council had failed, and they had failed owing hundreds of thousands of pounds in tax, national insurance and an unpaid COVID loan. Would the Chancellor agree that this is just more evidence that, just like the party opposite, reform cannot be trusted with other people's money?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for bringing this matter to the House's attention. I can't comment on individual cases of COVID fraud and issues of tax, but I would say he wouldn't be the first member of Reform who took a fraudulent COVID loan. Just in time. I'm not sure whether he's still the shadow Chancellor or not. Thank you.
Manira Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Given the Chancellor has just confirmed that today's U-turn will only support our hard-pressed local pubs, could I ask her what message she has for independent restaurants and coffee shops like Bones in Twickenham that are struggling to survive, let alone grow?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, when the Liberal Democrats had the chance, what did they do? They put VAT up on hospitality businesses. Here they are, coming up with ideas, Mr. Speaker, without plans to pay for them, wanting to increase borrowing over and over again, rather than make sure we support businesses in a fair and sustainable way over the years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents are fed up of seeing more and more dodgy bob shops on Hagley Road, Harborne and neighbouring Bearwood High Street. Can the Chancellor say what the government is doing to tackle money laundering and other financial crimes involving dodgy shops blighting our high streets?
I couldn't agree more with my honourable friend, and that's why at the budget I announced, on the basis of many representations from colleagues, including my honourable friend, a comprehensive set of measures to crack down on illegal high street activity. We want our high streets to thrive, but these illegal businesses that are selling counterfeit goods and often harbouring more dangerous criminal activity have got to be cracked down on, and that's why we put money into it in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vast swathes of Bridport, Bedminster, Maiden, Newton, Yetminster, Thornford, whole parts of West Dorset are currently underwater. Dorset and Wiltshire Fire Service are doing an amazing job of rescuing residents, whether trapped at home or in cars. Unfortunately, in the long-term funding settlement, Dorset and Wiltshire Fire Service will suffer a £1.2 million shortfall because the Treasury's underlying assumptions are incorrect. Will the Chancellor agree to meet with me so we can show you why this is a problem for them?
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I start by thanking the emergency services in the honourable gentleman's constituency for all their work, making sure people are kept safe and they're responding to the challenges people face with flooding. We are determined to support public services across the board, and that is why the decisions my right honourable friend the Chancellor has taken at previous budgets and at the spending review mean that we have sustainable funding for our public services in all parts of our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I thank my right honourable friend for bringing us record investment, financial stability and repeated interest rate cuts. But does she share my astonishment that the Reform Party is not only welcoming treacherous Tories who did so much to wreck our economy and public services, but is actually entrusting them with economic policy?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, and the honourable member for Clacton is warmly welcoming people who spent 14 years undermining public services, who wrecked the economy, who botched Brexit, and who then got booted out by the British people in 2024. And, Mr. Speaker, their latest recruit was so bad she managed to get sacked by Liz Truss.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. I heard the words of the Minister to the Honourable Member for Shipley in relation to Eco4, but the reality is the vague promise in the Warm Homes Plan to put right poor quality work under Eco4 feels like empty words to those constituents of mine in North East Fife affected. Will the Treasury look at the only viable option to this disastrous scheme, which is a redress one?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question, and it is an important one because there had been too many people let down by the scheme put in place by the party opposite. I'm sure she would have seen the announcement last week by the Energy Secretary setting out £15 billion warm homes plan to make sure that the work upgrading the quality of British homes continues in the years ahead, particularly for lower income households, but for all households across the piece. And she'll also be aware that the ongoing remediation work will be taking place as part of that scheme.
And in MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ben Houchin's Teesworks saga has seen over £500 million of taxpayers' monies funnelled to enrich a few business people, while the opportunity for a sovereign wealth fund investment programme has been squandered. Can the Minister advise me as to what steps are being taken to ensure there is meaningful investment for economic growth and development on Teesside?
Mr. Speaker, this government is backing investment in Teesside to create the good jobs that my honourable friend's constituents deserve. I know that Teesside is very well placed across a range of sectors to lead in our country. For example, £4 billion is going into the UK's first carbon capture, usage and storage cluster in Teesside, including the world's first at-scale gas power station with CCUS.
Bobby Dean.
Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago, this place introduced legislation stopping banks from applying tax deductions after paying out compensation for wrongdoing. Now, lenders are set to pay out billions of pounds in relation to the motor finance scandal, but they will be able to reduce their tax bills because most of these companies have channelled their money via subsidiaries. So does the Minister agree that this is not in keeping with the spirit of the law, and will they do something about it?
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member refers to the motor finance redress situation. We are, as you would expect, monitoring that very closely, and we want to see it resolved in an efficient way that provides certainty for consumers and for firms as well. As the Honourable Member knows, seeking to change the rules on corporation tax would deviate from our commitment to certainty and predictability in the tax system as set out in our corporate tax roadmap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish you a speedy recovery. I welcome the economic steps that the Chancellor has taken against Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and I encourage her to go further. Does she, however, agree that the British public can only have confidence in our sanctions regime if those in political leadership across all parties, including the Shadow Attorney General, have an ongoing involvement in advising Russian oligarchs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many, I was staggered at the reports that Mr. Abramovich has appointed senior counsel, including the Shadow Attorney General, in relation to proceedings in Jersey. I cannot speak for the opposition. I had many years of that. But our focus remains on ensuring there is no further delay in the proceeds of sale from Chelsea Football Club reaching humanitarian causes in Ukraine. If Mr. Abramovich fails to act quickly, this government is fully prepared to pursue legal action to release the funds. We know whose side we are on. We are on the side of the Ukrainian people and of Britain's national interest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More than 80% of households in Bromley and Biggin Hill have at least one car or van, which is significantly higher than the average in Greater London. So the decision to remove the 5p fuel duty reduction hits them particularly hard. And this is the latest in a slew of measures against motorists, including increased congestion charging and the ULEZ charge, which is really hitting them in the pockets. Why does the Labour Party continue to use motorists as a cash cow?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have extended the temporary 5p fuel duty cut until the end of August 2026. And then, Mr. Speaker, rates will then gradually return to early 2022 levels. The planned increase in line with inflation will also not take place. That will save the average driver, Mr. Speaker, £49 next year compared to previous plans.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While pubs may have a large lobby, we know that it's the independents which power our local economy. In looking through the spreadsheets on business rates for our independent businesses after the relief has been applied, I've got businesses in my city who are going to be seeing an increase up to 93% in their business rates. Can the Minister say what engagement he has had with small independents to ensure that they're safeguarded with the relief that he's about to announce?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is important to note that at the moment there is a 40% relief in the system for smaller and independent businesses, and over the coming years, as a result of the transitional relief protection we put in, that will be phased out. I think, just as the Chancellor said earlier, it is reasonable, and members across the House will agree that by the end of the decade, it wouldn't be right to have the temporary pandemic support still in place.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't challenge you to a corridor race today, but good luck with your leg. I wrote to the Chancellor on the 8th of January with the support of 7,000 businesses, small businesses, not just pubs, but businesses from across the spectrum. Their concerns about not only the rate revaluations, the vicious tax rises that they've now had to suffer, but also the effect of the cost of the Workers' Rights Bill. When can the 7,001 of us expect a reply?
Mr. Speaker, I am regularly replying to letters and parliamentary questions from the honourable member and members on all sides of this House.
Antonio Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are many SMEs in advanced manufacturing supply chains in my bit of the Black Country. Does the Minister agree with me that successfully implementing our industrial strategy is vital to securing the growth through small businesses that we need to get British industry back on track?
I thank my honourable friend for that question and the work that she does to champion small businesses and all businesses in the Black Country, and particularly in her own constituency. Advanced manufacturing was one of our industrial strategy sectors where we have huge strengths as a country and where we are determined to support them to grow and fulfil their potential.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What does the Minister say to childminders in Melton and Syston concerned about potentially increased administrative burdens and cash flow pressures as a result of changes under making tax digital for businesses over 50,000, which scrap the blanket 10% wear and tear allowance, replacing it with a requirement for line-by-line item accounting, with them having to pay up front and claim back later?
I thank the honourable member for his question. This is an important issue that is of concern to childminders. I have replied to correspondence, I think, to the honourable member and to others in this place on this topic. I would be happy to talk with members about it. I do think the change is proportionate and reasonable, and we have engaged closely with the sector to make sure that the burden will be proportionate for those who are affected by it.
Sarah Coombs.
Thanks to the policies of this Labour Treasury team, receiving £1.5 million to smarten up our towns. Does the Minister agree that local people should have a say in how this funding is spent? And will they encourage local people in Rowley, West Bromwich and Albury to fill in my survey about how we spend this government cash?
I very much encourage the people in my honourable friend's constituency to fill out her survey. The Pride in Place money that we are allocating across some of the most deprived parts of the country will make a huge difference in regenerating local areas left behind by the previous government. And I would encourage everyone in all of our communities to get involved and shape those plans, because those plans can only be improved by direct contact with the people who will stand to benefit from them most.
Mr. Speaker, Link have just doubled down on its decision not to grant Totnes a banking hub, despite the Prime Minister telling members at PMQs that every community that wants one should have one. So will the Chancellor now agree to review the criteria for banking hubs so that people have access to face-to-face banking services, not just access to cash, when the last bank turns its back on its customers and leaves town?
Mr. Speaker, the Government, of course, recognises the importance of in-person banking services as well as access to cash, as indeed the honourable member and I have discussed. In-person services, as she knows, are provided through traditional bank branches, banking hubs, post offices and by other means as well. I will continue to monitor the situation and, as she knows, I've listened very carefully to the concerns that she has, and I'm happy to do so again.
Callum Anderson.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the House of Lords Financial Services Regulation Committee on Private Markets published a report on private markets highlighting the potential risks to economic stability, and the Bank of England have also undertaken a stress test of the ecosystem. Can the Minister set out what actions she is considering taking with regulators to strengthen transparency and oversight of private markets so that we can mitigate any systemic risks?
I thank the honourable friend for his question. He's right that the rise in private markets has brought benefits, including to growth and financial stability. We've discussed that many times in the context of pensions, but it does come with new potential risks. The Treasury and regulators have increased their focus on those risks in non-bank sector in recent years and played a leading role in the response to emerging non-banks risks internationally, which I'm sure he is aware. In particular, the government emphasised in the November remit letter to the Bank of England's Financial Policy Committee that the committee should continue to consider risks risks in private markets. And we are considering the House of Lords Committee recommendations and will respond in due course.
Smith.
Mr. Speaker, at the weekend, Storm Ingrid caused the seawall at Dawlish to collapse in 2 new places. We wait to see the damage caused by Storm Chandra today. Both are once again exposing the vulnerability of the main rail line to Devon and Cornwall, which is vital for the local economy. Given the reported lack of a Treasury emergency reserve, can the Chancellor guarantee contingency funding for any urgent and unplanned resilience work required and not covered by a fiscal event?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for raising the situation in her constituency. And of course, we work with all departments across government, have had their budgets set to include contingency, to include known pressures. One of the ways in which we've managed the spending settlements differently from the previous government is that all individual departments must recognise the fact that unexpected pressures will come along. They need to prepare for them and make sure they have robust plans to respond when things occur.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In South Shore Park, my constituency, has got the highest concentration of deprived communities and also the most deprived ward in the country. We've developed a local people's plan which will work to regenerate the area. So will my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, agree to meet with me to discuss this plan so we can regenerate the most deprived area in this country?
Yeah. I thank my honourable friend for that question, and we were pleased to be able to allocate Pride in Place funding to my right honourable friend's constituency in recognition of the levels of deprivation, and along with policies like getting rid of the cruel 2-child benefit cap that the previous government introduced and investing record amounts in social housing, this government are delivering for the people of Blackpool, and I'm very happy to meet with my honourable friend.
Dave Dugan, final question.
My constituents restored the Ailith Hotel from near dereliction to an outstanding venue for dining, drinking and as a hotel. But they are smothered by the compound burden of VAT, rates, wage costs, duty increases, ENICs, energy costs and the squeeze on spending. That's why in December there were 8,000 fewer jobs in hospitality compared with November and 20,000 compared with September. Will the Chancellor consider reducing VAT on hospitality to the 7% it is in Germany, the 9% it is in Ireland, or the 10% in Spain or Italy?
What I suggest is that the people of Scotland ask who was in charge in Scotland the last 2 decades and kick them out at the next election and give Labour a chance.
Right, that completes questions. Let the front bench change over. Order. Before we come to the statement on common hold and leasehold reform, I once again note for the 2nd day in a row my disappointment about briefings to the media before important announcements are brought to the House. As the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee recently stated, making the most important statements in the first instance to Parliament means doing so before they're made to the media, not at the first available opportunity thereafter. These are the government's own rules in its own ministerial code, and it must do better. I'm defending backbenchers on both sides. They've been elected here to hear it. Sky News and BBC is not the way that we do business. If there are issues of market sensitivity, or indeed any other sensitivities, ministers are welcome to seek advice from my office or the clerks on how the best balance of these sensitivities might legitimate or need to update me before the media. We've got to work together on this. The message is clear. I'm not in charge of the code. The Prime Minister is. He needs to take the code more seriously. We come to the statement. Minister Matthew Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My department always strives to ensure the House is updated at the earliest possible opportunity, and I note and appreciate fully the points you've made and ensure they're passed on to my ministerial colleagues. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement on the government's draft Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Bill. We made a clear and unambiguous commitment in our manifesto to act where previous governments had failed and finally bring the feudal leasehold system to an end. We did so on the basis of a firm conviction that it is only by extinguishing fully the historical iniquities on which the present leasehold system rests that we can ensure that the dream of home ownership is made real for millions of households across the country. Today, the Government has published and laid the Commonhold and Leasehold Reform Bill in draft for pre-legislative scrutiny by the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee. This ambitious piece of legislation will modernise property law, deliver a fair and efficient modern housing market, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, transform the experience of home ownership for millions of leaseholders across the country. The draft bill includes the following key provisions: a new legal framework for commonhold to reform and reinvigorate this radical improvement on leasehold ownership, a statutory restriction on new leasehold flats to ensure that in future commonhold is the default tenure, a new process for converting to commonhold from leasehold to make conversion easier so more homeowners can enjoy this improved form of ownership, the abolition of leasehold forfeiture and its replacement with a fairer system of lease enforcement, the repeal of draconian powers relating to rent charges on freehold estates, and the capping of ground rent for older leases at £250 per year, changing to a peppercorn after 40 years. Let me expand briefly, Mr. Speaker, on each of these core measures, beginning with commonhold. As you know, Mr. Speaker, commonhold is a modern home ownership structure that is widely used around the world. It is not merely an alternative to leasehold ownership, but a radical improvement on it. At the heart of the commonhold model is a simple principle. The people who should own buildings and who should exercise control over their management, shared facilities and related costs are not third-party landlords, but the people who live in the flats within them and who have a direct stake in their upkeep. Commonhold ensures that the interests of homeowners are preserved in perpetuity. It transfers decision-making to them so that homeowners have a greater say over how their home is managed and the bills they pay, as well as the flexibility to respond to the changing needs of their building and its residents. Mr. Speaker, for a variety of reasons, commonhold failed to establish itself following its introduction in 2004. As a result, there are fewer than 20 commonhold developments in existence today, and the 2002 legal framework is hopelessly outdated. The provisions in the draft bill build on the publication of our commonhold white paper in March last year, which confirmed the detail of our commonhold reform programme and responded to the Law Commission's thorough and expert review of commonhold law. The result is legislation that will reinvigorate commonhold through the introduction of a comprehensive new legal framework that will enable commonhold to be used in the widest possible range of settings. To ensure commonhold becomes the default tenure as our manifesto promised, the draft bill also includes provisions to ban the use of leasehold for new flats. Once enacted, this will ensure that, other than in exceptional circumstances, all flats are provided as commonhold. These provisions will work in tandem with the ban on the use of leasehold for new houses contained in the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act 2024. Alongside the publication of the draft bill today, we're publishing a Moving to Commonhold consultation, seeking input from industry and consumers on precisely how we implement the new ban. The feedback received will ensure we can proceed with a smooth transition to commonhold for new developments, while at the same time protecting the supply of new homes and determining whether there is a case for any justified exemptions. The draft bill also includes measures, Mr. Speaker, to make it easier for existing leaseholders to convert their buildings to commonhold. The existing law already sets out a process for conversion, but it is one that requires consent from everyone with an interest in the block. This sets an unacceptably high bar and means that commonhold is not achievable if even a single unit owner, lender, or the existing freeholder objects. The draft bill will introduce a new process for conversion, one which brings conversion into line with wider enfranchisement processes and will make conversion possible if at least 50% of qualifying leaseholders agree. Mr. Speaker, while the previous government's Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act does provide leaseholders with important rights and protections, on these benches we have always maintained that it was a distinctly unambitious piece of legislation that left untouched serious problems, including the disproportionate and draconian threat of forfeiture as a means of ensuring compliance with a lease agreement. For too long, outdated forfeiture laws have allowed landlords to threaten people with losing their home and hard-earned equity over small debts of as little as £350 or any amount if left unpaid for 3 years. The draft bill contains provisions to abolish forfeiture and replace it with a modern, proportionate lease enforcement system that addresses breaches fairly with appropriate safeguards and judicial oversight. Mr. Speaker, you'll know that before Christmas we launched 2 comprehensive consultations seeking views on how best to implement new consumer protections for homeowners on freehold estates and the ways in which we might reduce the prevalence of privately managed estates over the coming years. To further enhance protections for homeowners on freehold estates, the draft bill will also repeal enforcement powers that apply to estate rent charges on them. These powers, often difficult to find in deeds and poorly understood by buyers, can lead to rent charge owners taking possession of or granting a lease over a freehold home as a result of small sums outstanding. That is not just unfair, it creates real barriers to home ownership and property sales. We will remove these wholly disproportionate and outdated remedies for enforcing rent charges by repealing sections 121 and 122 of the Law of Property Act 1925, including estate rent charges. Mr. Speaker, the Government is acutely aware that the cost of living remains a pressing concern for leaseholders across England and Wales, and that those who remain subject to unfair and unreasonable practices need urgent relief. That is why last summer we consulted jointly with the Welsh Government on strengthening leaseholder protections over charges and services. That consultation included proposals to reform the Section 20 major works procedure, increase transparency over service charges, and enhance access to redress through the relevant provisions in the Act. We thank all those who responded to the consultation and will set out details of how we intend to implement the measures in question as soon as possible. However, the Government is determined to go further to alleviate the cost of living pressures facing leaseholders. In our manifesto, we promise to tackle unregulated and unaffordable ground rent charges. The draft bill honours that commitment. As the House will know, historically, ground rents, which often entail no service being provided whatsoever, were of low or nominal value. However, over the past 2 decades, a practice has developed of freeholders including high and escalating ground rent clauses in leases. Such clauses are causing leaseholders considerable financial strain, and some are unable to sell or remortgage their properties as a result. The draft bill will cap ground rents at £250 per year initially, changing to a peppercorn after 40 years. This will provide immediate financial relief for leaseholders with high and harmful ground rents, while the longer-term change to a peppercorn cap will eliminate the two-tier market between new and older leases, delivering a fair and efficient modern housing market. These reforms will necessarily have effects on existing contractual arrangements and investments, something which this Government does not undertake lightly, Mr. Speaker. However, the Government has a clear mandate to tackle unregulated and unaffordable ground rent charges, and our approach has been designed to strike a fair balance between the interests of leaseholders, freeholders and investors, maintaining the reputation of the UK as a safe place to invest. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as I've made it clear to the House on previous occasions, the last Government's Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act contains a number of specific but serious flaws that prevent certain provisions from operating as intended and that need to be rectified via primary legislation. While not included in the draft bill, our intention is to rectify those flaws in primary legislation. Among other things, this will allow us to commence the 2024 Act's enfranchisement provisions, making it cheaper and easier for leaseholders to extend their lease or buy their freehold. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, the publication of the draft bill today is a historic moment. It marks the beginning of the end for the feudal leasehold system that has tainted the dream of home ownership for so many. I look forward to working closely with the Select Committee as they perform their invaluable role in scrutinising carefully this draft legislation, and I encourage honourable members from across the House to engage with it and the accompanying consultation on banning new leasehold flats. Mr. Speaker, I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Minister Gareth Bacon.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Minister for his remarks and for advanced sight of his statement. Progress on leasehold reform is to be welcomed. Labour promised this when they stood for election 18 months ago, so it is about time they got on with it, as the previous Conservative government had started to. Mr. Speaker, the previous Conservative government began the process of fundamental reform to the existing system of leaseholds by making it easier to extend a lease or to buy a freehold, increasing the standard lease extension term to 990 years, and giving leaseholders greater transparency over their service charges. His Majesty's opposition remain committed to giving leaseholders a fair deal, want householders to have security for the future, and will continue to hold the government to account on this.